Hi, it's Corene. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm making a handmade card from start to finish, and I'm using a collection by Pebbles called Heart of Home. It's an absolute beautiful collection. And here are all the measurements if you wanted to pause on this and recreate a card this same size. It's a fairly large card that's going to be going with a gift, so I don't have to worry about sending this in the mail. And I really wanted it to be a nice size card. So my card ends up being 5 by 8. So I cut it to 10 by 8. I'm scoring it in the middle at 5 inches and folding it over. And again, it gives me a 5 by 8 card. The collection that I'm using is by Pebbles, like I've already mentioned. It's called Heart of Home, and I'm using both the actual paper collection, some pieces from that, and also the digital collection. I like to buy, if I can, I like to buy a digital form of any paper that I'm using and combine it with the actual paper pack as well. So those pieces you see there with a white block in the middle, those are the digital form. I didn't want to waste any ink, and I knew that none of that would be shown. So I just put a white block in there before I printed it out. And now I'm cutting down my mat pieces to size, which I put on the screen already. So here, this piece here, I decided I wanted to have a white border with it. So I'm going to pull out another piece of Nina white cardstock, and I'm cutting that to 4 inches. And then I will just cut it, the height down once I determine where I want it. I'm going to use the Spellbinders A2 Curved Borders 1 die. It's a beautiful scalloped edge border, and I'm going to cut both this white and decorative piece. So I'm pulling out my Sizzix Big Shot machine, and I went ahead and put a little bit of tape to hold them together because I want that curve to match up perfectly. And if you run it through one by one, you most likely will not get the same curve. So it's best just to cut them both at the same time. So I'm running that through twice actually to make sure I have a good cut, and it cut out perfectly. The very edge there, I didn't like how pointy it was, so I'm just going to use my scissors and round that off. And now I have 2 pieces that match perfectly. So I want that white piece just to stick out at the bottom. So here I'll just kind of mark it with my thumb and cut it down off screen just as a mat to go behind it. I'm using the Avriel envelope pockets to store my dies in. And now I pulled out some Spellbinders dies that I'm going to use these beautiful leaves. And I have a scrap piece of paper from the collection that's a very muted gray color. So I'm just going to cut out several of the leaves and flowers. I think I only end up using 2 or 3 on the finished card. I even pulled out some Joy Crafts, I believe, leaves, but I don't end up using those. So I cut several out. I didn't keep all that on film to bore you with that. So I'm going to use my Tim Holtz paper piercer and poke those out and set them aside. And the ones that I didn't use today, I have a bin that I throw them in that I can just use for later. Since it's such a muted pattern, it would go with a lot of different collections. So now I'm going to start putting my mat pieces down. I'm using my ATG gun for this first piece, and this is a 5 by 8 piece, so it covers the entire front of my card. The next piece is 7 3/4 by 4 3/4. I wanted to give myself a little bit of border to let that other pattern show in the background. But before I did so, I'm using 2 pieces of lightweight chipboard. It's basically like a cereal box weight chipboard, and I'm using my Fabri-Tac to adhere 2 pieces together to put that down behind that mat. This card has quite a bit of dimension to it, which I love to do in a card when I get the chance. So I'm just going to adhere that down. And exact same thing, I wanted a little bit of more dimension behind this piece. So I'm adding another piece of that chipboard behind it. And I'm trying to go up to the edge just to make sure it has the chipboard covering the entire back, just so it doesn't bend on the ends there. So now I'll glue down that white piece just slightly so you can see it as a matte piece behind it. So I went ahead and printed out some more papers with that beautiful white stitching around it. And that pink is from the same, that's why I like using some of the digital, because I can match pieces to that. Those were just hearts that I had in my Cameo, and I chose the color to be that same pink in this very first matte piece. And then I added that white stitching around it just to make it stand out slightly. So I'm tying some twine around my first matte piece. That's why I had not adhered it down, because I was deciding whether or not I wanted to go ahead and tie it down. I'm going to tape it in the back so it doesn't move. I love the texture that ends up giving my card, which in the end I end up covering a lot of the bow portion of it, so I'll add another one, which you'll see towards the end. So that beautiful sentiment piece is also from the collection. It says choose joy, and to me this makes a beautiful wedding card or an anniversary card, and that's what I was making it for. So I wanted to keep the colors very soft. So I cut another little bow piece off, or another piece of the twine I should say, and made a little bow out of it, which I will add on the top of that bow there. I love a double bow like that. I did also cut some extra cardstock to go behind the hearts, because I knew that they would most likely be hanging off that first matte piece. So to make them a little bit more stable, or to give them some more stability, I went ahead and adhered them to another piece of cardstock, as you can see that I'm gluing here. That bottom one won't be hanging off, but I went ahead and added the matte piece on it anyways. So just using my hot glue gun, I'm adding that second bow to it. And now that I was happy with that, I want to go ahead and adhere that down to the front of my card. But because of that twine, it doesn't sit completely flush. So I'm using some of that lightweight chipboard again, and just adding a piece to the top and bottom. That way the twine doesn't interfere with how it sits on my card. And you'll also see me cut another piece, because I was toying with the idea of making it stand up a little bit higher, but I didn't like that, so I just kept it to the one piece there. I love Fabri-Tac. It adheres pretty quickly, but you can also move it if you need to, if you didn't get it on there straight. So now that front sentiment piece, I have to do the same thing too as well, because it's going to be sitting over that twine. So I'm just cutting a piece of the chipboard to go on the top and bottom. This way it'll sit nice and flush on top of my card. And now before I add that sentiment piece down, I will go ahead and add my hearts to it. And that's exactly what I wanted out of the hearts. I didn't want them to stand out too much. I wanted them to sort of blend in with the background, but they do stand out just enough. So just using my hot glue, I'm going to adhere down that piece. My card base is 110 pounds, so it's a very sturdy card. Now I pulled out some gorgeous English roses and lotus flowers from Wild Orchid Crafts. The lotus flowers are fairly new to the website, and they are absolutely beautiful. They have them in several colors, so I'll be sure to link them down in the description box along with Wild Orchid Crafts website. I believe currently it is September 13th of 2017. They have free shipping on their order, so stop by their website and check it out. They always have some amazing deals and sales, and always adding new products, so I hope you stop by and check them out. I'm just kind of tucking in a few of those leaves that I cut out previously using my hot glue gun. Just kind of arranging the flowers the way I wanted to. And here I'm just, again, I wanted a little more texture to my card, so I'm using some seam binding from Hug Snug, tying a bow, and then I will hot glue that into place. And I love their English roses. I love that pink. It's sort of looking purple on camera, but it is a beautiful pink color. And then I'm just tucking in 2 of the lotus flowers. And here is where I decided that enough of that twine wasn't showing. So I'm just wrapping some more twine around my fingers. I wrapped it around 3 times, and now I'm going to cut another piece and tie that around the middle. And that just kind of gives me a quick little bow. And I love how it stands out. So I just kind of tucked it in there, trimming it down. And it just slightly peeks out, which I was really happy with that. Now I'm using my heat gun to just kind of get rid of any of the hot glue strings. They just kind of disappear when you run that over it. Adding a matte piece to the inside of the card, which leaves me with a white border to put my sentiment in. And now to finish off my card, I'm using some Nouveau crystal drops in white. White is my favorite. I'm already on the 2nd bottle of the white crystal drops. If you're thinking about getting some and you're not sure what color, I would highly suggest white, and also the clear is really pretty as well. And last but not least, I am adding a small filigree silver corner to the card. It was a perfect finish to that corner up there. I'm using a little bit of glossy accents and a scrap piece of chipboard there. I will add a little bit to the back and adhere it down. So I hope you check out the description box for all the links to Wild Orchid Crafts, and stop by my blog for more information and detailed photos. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed today's card.